Nice to meet you.
You too.
1, 2.
Sit down at the same time, I'll introduce the chants too.
Yeah.
I'll just grab one. Yeah, I mean, it's still registered.
Yeah.
we are at the moment we start this dream that we start. So, when I see you and in the middle of this story, incredible. And I remember I discussed with Hans about the fact that we come to him after Father Lombardi say to us, you have to speak with Father Zorna, you remember? And Father Zorna and Father Lombardi said to me when Friday, when we went to the press conference, said, you remember, Professor Caffo, when I say to you, now we are here. It's true. But it will be very interesting, fascinating, but very complicated issue. We have to be in charge of this conference until the end. It's not easy. It's too many people and many interest, a lot of expectation, and we have to manage the process. And our people will be visible, they like to be present. I had your friend Mararti that said to me, why is not your name as Hikmet in the you know, every person like to be visible in this occasion. Nothing to do with the sense of this conflict. Is you did
your idea to invite her. I wasn't going to invite them because they're not doing anything in this issue.
Yes, but you know, that this is the people, we will have some of these people. Some people will come and people will be nervous because they were not invited. You know, it's Boschi is the center, and I discussed about we invited Boschi at the beginning.
Yeah.
After she said no, but we lose our time. It's,
Eccoci. Ci siamo.
You will talk first, and then you'll introduce the video? ¿Cuándo para la ley? Yes.
Okay, welcome everybody to the press conference at the start of the Child Dignity in the Digital World Congress. On my left we have Baroness Joanna Shields, who has a very long title, so I'll get it right by quickly checking it up here. She is the UK Special Representative for Internet Safety and served as Under-Secretary of State and Minister for Internet Safety and Security from 2015 to 2017 of the British government. And she is the founder of We Protect. Next to her is Father Hans Zollner, who is president of the Center for Child Protection. Next to Father Zollner, we have Professor Ernesto Caffo, who is the scientific director of the Congress and professor of child and adolescent psychiatry at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia. He's also the founder and president of SOS Telefono Azzurro and board member of the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And next to Professor Caffo, we have Dr. Ernie Allen, who is the chairman of the We Protect Global Alliance. The format of this press conference is all of the speakers will speak briefly. There'll be a very brief video, and then it'll be open to questions and answers. So without further ado, Father Hans.
Thank you, Alexander, and thank you for coming. The Center for Child Protection of the Pontifical Gregorian University is really happy that we can start with the Congress tomorrow, and that we can announce the topics and the speakers today publicly. This has been a joint work, and I'm really glad that Baroness Shields and Professor Caffo are here. The mother and the father, respectively, of the two partner organizations with which we have organized this, We Protect and Telefono Azzurro. This is in the line of the Center for Child Protection's engagement and commitment to safeguarding of minors. We have had many conferences over the last 6 years since the center, the CCP, has been established. A big one was 5 years ago when we were sitting here and introducing the Symposium Towards Healing and Renewal on Sexual Abuse of Minors committed by clergy. This is now a different Congress with different participants, with another scope. We have here gathered from tomorrow to Friday the top notch of the world from science, psychiatrists, sociologists, pedagogues, etc., who have worked in this field for many years. The world experts. We will have here representative of governments. We are especially grateful to the German, the Italian and the British government for their support. We will have here people from international organizations like UNICEF and big NGOs that work in this field since many years, ECPAT, etc. We'll have representatives from different religions. So this is a truly interdisciplinary and international membership. Participants come from all parts of the world, and we think that this can be a sort of think tank for tackling the problem of sexual abuse of minors on the internet, which is and has become one of the biggest concerns for humanity, we believe, because there are so many young people who are at risk, passively and actively, by consuming material on the internet and by being lured into that. My colleagues here will explain about the numbers and about the impact in detail. We have certainly the specificity of this Congress consists in bringing together people from different fields. You know, every sector that I've mentioned has its own conference and Congress going on. But there is very little interaction between all the key players, as I've mentioned, governments, police, science, religions, NGOs, and we will have them at one table. One of the key features will be that in the afternoons, after having listened to the experts in the morning sessions, we will have working groups in which we mix people from different professions and different backgrounds. We will also have observers from the young generation in the Congress participants, so they will be able to voice how young people, now, we did not invite youngsters under the age of 18 for obvious reasons, but very young students from Roman universities will be with the participants and in the working groups, and they will have their share and their say on all this. We are very conscious that we are at the beginning, and we are very conscious that this is not something that can be achieved by one player only. So we need the interaction, the cohesion, and the commitment from all parties involved. And that's why at the end of the conference, at the Congress, we will ask the Holy Father to receive the declaration that will be presented by the participants to him, that he will receive it, he will endorse it with his moral authority, and he will encourage us to move on jointly and in a very decided way, because there is no time to lose. We are grateful for all the speakers and respondents who have accepted coming to this Congress. None of them whom we had asked has declined. All have signed up immediately, and we think that this can be a unique occasion in really bringing about a dialogue that we want to continue after the Congress in a call for papers and in concrete action points. That will certainly involve many, many players in many levels and in many areas. Thank you.
We start to prepare this Congress 2 years ago, and we decided to find the topic more important for the protection of children, in particular in the area of sexual abuse. And we start to see the data, millions of children in the world victims of sexual abuse. And we start to think about the speaker, but discussing about the topic of the Congress. We saw this very important area and very delicate area of the digital area in which the children are victims of sexual abuse more and more. For the reason we changed during those two years the sense of the conference more and more to the digital area of sexual abuse. And we found the right people to present their speech. The conference have the structure to have a major speaker that will present original data, original expertise in the area of the topic, and we have discussant. We have people that will present other data in area in which the first speaker will present. We will open the discussion that after we will develop in the working group in the afternoon. Working group, we have 10 working groups with the leaders that are special person that we decided to have with us to manage the group with different discipline together and to find at the end of every discussion group topic that we have to study more or to have more data about, to be more precise for the future steps of the conference. The conference will be the starting point, as Professor Dorner said, the starting point of a discussion area that is not so well studied and that in which the research is not special, is not so well developed. We have different disciplines in this conference, and we try to combine expertise of different people of different parts of the world and different disciplines together to find a common sense. The problem that we have now is to understand better what is the research and to see in which way we can transform the research in action, because the goal will be to have a special indication, special ideas to give to the institutions to promote the better protection for children in the world. And in this case, I think, we found in the Gregorian a very important point of reference, either for a scientific point of view, in the CTCP, either in all the group that work for this conference. We discussed a lot in those months, and I think the result will be a special opportunity for all of us to share ideas and to build a new knowledge about child sexual abuse online for children.
Thank you, Ernesto. Ernesto's talked about, as the scientific coordinator of the Congress, the larger goal. Let me get a little more specific about the flow of the conference, how it will work, and who a few of the key players are. We begin Tuesday afternoon with comments by two prominent Italian government officials, President Pietro Grasso, the President of the Italian Senate, and by Minister Valeria Fedeli, the Minister for Education, Universities, and Research. And then we will have two extraordinary keynote speeches to lay out the course of this conference. One by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State for the Holy See, and the second by Baroness Shields, the founder of the We Protect Global Alliance. On Wednesday morning, we begin to go to work in a very scientific way. The first session looks at what do we know about the problem of child sexual abuse and exploitation online? What does the research show? The leading speaker is the Dean of the Harvard School of Public Health, Michelle Williams. And among those who will comment, Dean Williams is one of the world's preeminent epidemiologists. And this is an issue that has an epidemiology. We know more and more about who the offenders are, about who the victims are, about how these offenses take place. Responding to her will be a series of experts from a variety of fields, including the #2 official at Interpol, who will talk about how serious this issue is from a law enforcement perspective. Having first looked at what we know about the problem, our second step will be to examine who are the offenders. What does the research show about the nature of the offender, how they access and victimize children, particularly online? And the lead speaker there will be a researcher from Canada, Dr. Michael Cito, who's viewed as perhaps the world's preeminent authority in this field. And he will be responded to by 3 other distinguished academics with a variety of backgrounds, including Dr. Ethel Quayle of the University of Edinburgh in the United Kingdom, who has been a leader in tracking child sexual exploitation online. Our third panel will examine a relatively new issue in this discussion, and that is the phenomenon that in this day of internet explosion, for the first time in human history, young children are being inundated with content that they've never ever been able to access before. So we will hear about the impacts of internet pornography on the developing brains of young children. We'll hear from a prominent neurosurgeon. We'll hear from a sexologist at the University of Pennsylvania and a leading German scholar in this field as we consider what needs to be done in this internet age to better insulate children from content that previously they would never have been able to access. But today, because they carry the internet around in their hands, they're being exposed to this content on a daily and on a regular basis, and it's having enormous societal impact. On Thursday morning, having talked initially about what we know about the problem, who the offenders are, we'll begin to discuss what we can do about it. And our lead speaker there is a man who's viewed as perhaps the world's leading child abuse researcher, Dr. David Finkelhor of the Crimes Against Children Research Center. In response to Dr. Finkelhor, we will hear from the head of global safety for the world's largest social media site, Facebook, with 2 billion users worldwide. And we will explore what can be done in a positive, constructive way to better address all the ramifications of these issues. Then we'll shift to the issue of politics and law. What changes do we need to make at the policy level? And leading that session will be the chairman of the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child, Professor Benyam Mizmour of South Africa. And I failed to mention in the earlier session, our chair is Dr. Zuma, the former chair of the African Union. So this will be a very diverse audience and discussion. Finally, on Thursday, we'll look at this issue from the various segments of society. What can we do about it as industry, as media, as the church? We'll hear from 2 prominent cardinals, including the cardinal from Nairobi, Kenya, and the cardinal from Manila in the Philippines. And then on Friday, we will attempt to bring all of this together. And one of the challenges will be to discuss how we can motivate and mobilize the world's leading philanthropic institutions to begin to divert and direct more resources to this problem instead of the many other problems that they face. And then finally, let me say, as Father Zollner mentioned and Professor Kaffel mentioned, throughout the course of this conference, we will be gathering all the participants representing many fields and many nationalities and many religions and many histories into working groups in which the goal will be for the participants not just to attend and listen, but to think, to be innovative, to come up with creative new approaches to this problem. So by close of business on Thursday, our hope is there will be some themes that will emerge, and that as a result of this World Congress, we will have an action plan for the future, for government, for religion, for the media, for industry, for all effective components of this problem. So we see this meeting as historic. I want to express my congratulations to Father Zollner and the Center for Child Protection, but it's more than just a conference. It's the beginning of true global leadership to eradicate a problem that's growing worse by the day and we need to do more about. Baroness Shields.
Thank you, Ernie. And I would like to welcome you all here for what I believe is going to be a truly special and unique week. I hope when we look back at this point in history, we say that was the point when the world woke up to the challenges and to the realities of life lived behind screens. So it's definitely, I mean, we can't argue that it is indeed a remarkable time to be alive. You know, technology is empowering us in ways that we never thought imaginable. And whilst these endless opportunities are opening new doors and our children are learning and creating and growing in remarkable ways, we also are seeing that technology is transforming childhood beyond recognition. And what we need to address this week, most importantly, is the impact of a life lived behind screens on young people globally. Now, this is, as we've said, as my fellow members of the steering committee have said so well already this afternoon, this is a challenge that transcends borders, and the only way to make an impact is to come together. And that's what this week is going to be all about. I would like to share with you a video of the impact of various internet harms and crimes on young people. Now, this is something that people often ask me, I mean, how many people are affected by that? Does that really happen? I'm here to tell you it really happens. And it becomes real when you talk to a mother who's sobbing because she's lost her child, who, for whatever reason, she became the one that the children decided to pick on. And after incessant cyberbullying, this young girl takes her life. It becomes real when you talk to parents who've lost a toddler, who, after the toddler went out to play on a normal day, she was abducted and murdered by a pedophile who was looking at child sexual abuse images online just a few hours before he committed that heinous crime. It becomes real when you talk to a mother whose son fell under the spell of the so-called Islamic State online. You know, felt like they offered him a solution. He traveled to Syria and was killed. It becomes real when you talk to parents whose children have a daughter who's in the hospital, who fell upon some self-harm sites that have become her, way in which she's expressing herself. And that child's in the hospital again because she can't stop harming herself. So when you think about all the benefits of the internet, we have to also look at the emerging challenges, the emerging darkness that is out there, because technology has no boundaries and evil has the same access that good has. And what this Congress is about is coming together, acknowledging that the generation that's growing up connected to screens must be protected. I mean, it's really important that the internet empowers, but we also have to protect, which is the basis of why we formed We Protect, a multi-stakeholder global alliance to bring together industry, law enforcement, NGOs, and the church and faith groups to ensure that the children who are growing up in this next generation are prepared for what they're facing every day as they live their lives connected to devices. So if you would bear with me, we'll start a video that will give you insights into the impact of internet harms and crimes on 7 young people.
All my friends have boyfriends, but no one looks at me. I just wanted someone to talk to, someone to pay attention. When he first messaged me, he said he was friends with one of my friends. I didn't think to check. He was so cute, and he said I was beautiful. He said that I could be a model. When he asked for the first photo, I didn't want to do it. I know I shouldn't have sent it to him, but I wanted him to like me. I wanted him to keep messaging me. But when he asked for a photo of me naked, I knew it was wrong, and I said no at first. He called me a tease, said I was just like all the other girls, just leading him on. He made me feel so bad. I felt like I had to. Now he's saying he's going to post it everywhere. He's going to ruin me if I don't pay him. I'm such an idiot. I already gave him all the money I have, but he keeps asking for more. He's going to send those photos to everyone, to humiliate me. I can't believe I actually thought he liked me.
My mate told me how easy it was to make money off of selling. I'd put a post up with the right emojis everywhere online. Some people would message me and we'd meet up somewhere quiet, and boom, cash in my hand. I couldn't believe how easy it was. I finally felt like I had some freedom, but then I sold these pills to this girl, and she took too many. My mate tells me it's her own fault. I feel guilty all the time. Now I hate selling. I wish I could just stop. How can I get away from them? People keep messaging me, asking for more. It's just a matter of time before I get caught out. I'm so paranoid. I don't know who to trust. Who's watching me?
It started after I downloaded some game. These ads just started to pop up with these girls asking me if I wanted to chat. Girls don't usually talk to me that much, so I clicked and watched. It was pretty weird, but I kind of liked it. I watched another, and then another, and another. Now I watch them whenever I can. Watching it doesn't feel the same anymore. I keep thinking I'll find something new, something I haven't seen yet. I think about those girls all day. Why don't any of the girls my age look like this? I just can't stop. Sometimes I feel disgusted with myself.
People point, stare and swear at me and my family every day. I swear, if I got my hands on them, I'll kill them. I found my brothers in faith, online. Now, we'll be the ones that make them scared. Go back home, they shout. Well, I am home. I know where my brothers are. This is my fight now.
Loser, idiot, ugly bitch. That's what they call me. They'd shout at me, push me around, pull my hair. But then it started online. They message me all day and all night on every app. I can't get away from them. I can't even post anything anymore because they'll comment horrible things. Every time my phone vibrates, I get this pain in my chest. There's no escape. What's the point anyway? No one likes me. No one would care.
I slept through my test at school this morning. Who cares about any of it? I'd rather be doing something with my friends, like playing this game. The graphics are really awesome. It's like I'm actually there. I steal cars, kill people, blow stuff up. My mum says I should do sports, study more, but what's the point? I just want to play the game. Yeah, my grades aren't great, but I forget all that when I play. Why should I care? Why should I stop?
There are times in life when how we act as a global community defines us. It defines our humanity. I think this is one of those times. Though these problems are immense, we believe we can make progress, which is why we're here this week. The Child Dignity in the Digital Age Congress will offer us an unprecedented opportunity to work together, to gain new insights, to learn from each other's wisdom, and to transform this newly found knowledge into tangible action. We welcome you all to join us for the entire week, and we hope at the end of it, we can feel like we've made an impact and that we've done what we can to protect our children.
Questions? Thank you. If there are any questions, if you could just say who you are, who you represent, and ideally who you would like to answer. Yes. We have mics to come round, so if you just wait.
Thank you. Nicolas Senez for La Croix, French Daily. My question for Father Zollner. I know your work and your involvement in the fight against sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. And when I speak about this Congress to my redaction in Paris, the answer was, but why they are doing such Congress in the Gregorian University isn't a manner for them to unfocus the problem on the abuse in the church. So what do you respond to that? What is the emergency of this Congress in the point of view of the Catholic Church?
Now, since Pope Benedict and since Pope Francis, the Catholic Church has committed to safeguarding of minors. There have been many measures. The legislation has changed. I personally can witness that in traveling to 50 countries on all continents, I see that this topic, the safeguarding of minors, is picking up in all parts of the world, not with the same speed, not with the same consistency everywhere, but we are making progress on this. The Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors is but one example for that. The Pope, with whom, as I'm a member of that commission also, with whom we met 10 days ago, made it very clear that the commission will continue and the remit will be focused, and we will stay focused, you can be sure about that. As I've said, the Center for Child Protection at this university was established 6 years ago as precisely giving voice to the commitment of the Catholic Church in this, and this, be aware of that, it was before Pope Francis, so it was under Pope Benedict already. At that time, we had all the dicasteries supporting our initiatives. We have the same for this Congress. We will have Cardinal Parolin. We will have the Pope who receives us. We will have a number of other heads of dicasteries who will be present for different occasions. We have two major cardinals of the Catholic Church here. Of course, we have seen that the issue of, as Baroness Schild said, as the issue of internet abuse is much bigger than 5 years ago and is much more pressing. So in collaboration with governments, in collaboration with organizations like Telefono Azzurro, who are working in this field, we think that we can offer a unique platform to, as we all of us said, to an international and interdisciplinary body of experts. I'm not aware that any other institution has done so far. So this is the specificity, and we have tried to convene this precisely here at this university and in Rome, and we bring it to the attention of the Holy Father, who supports this initiative from the beginning and who will also receive the results, if you wish, at the end of this week. But maybe the others can also reply to that question.
Let me just add briefly that I think the context here, as Father Zollner says, is the internet has changed the very nature of this problem. This is a problem that's exploded. I ran for 28 years an organization called the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the United States. We received Never in any of the years I was there, as many as 1 million reports of child sexual abuse material on the internet. Last year, they received 8 million. They're on pace to receive 10 million this year. The internet has provided a vehicle for people who are sexually interested in children to network with others of like interest around the world. And with the emergence of the new anonymous dark web, they can do it with anonymity. A British university did research on the dark web that found that while only 2% of dark web sites are child sexual abuse sites, they account for more than 80% of dark web traffic. So this is an exploding problem that cannot be handled by one institution, by one country, by one agency. And so I think the Center for Child Protection and the work of Father Zollner is an extraordinary example of seizing the moment and leading, bringing together diverse interests, diverse groups to try to solve what's a major societal issue today.
Yes.
Carol Glatz, Catholic News Service. As everyone has mentioned, it's so important that every player play a part. We are all aware of the current situation of Vatican Nuncio, who was suspected of having child pornography. What is something the Vatican can do to play its part and to be a leader? And this is how we have to handle a very complicated issue when it comes to jurisdiction, because I wonder if that's also a topic. What's the best way countries can handle where you have crimes being committed across international borders, and in this instance, evoking diplomatic immunity? What should be done?
What can be done? Due process has to be followed. If there is a case and if a person is found guilty, then he or she needs to be punished, whoever that is, full stop. And if you read the press statement that the Holy See has issued on that, they are in contact with the US authorities on this. And I'm pretty convinced that this follows the normal way of diplomatic and interstate relationships. So I think that has been handled according to what the US or others would do in the same case. I mean, everybody who commits a crime needs to be punished, period.
Yes, Jerry.
Dr. Allen, you spoke about the dark web. Could you explain it a bit more, please?
A number of years ago, in its infinite wisdom, the U.S. government, the U.S. Defense Department, created technology that allowed people to use the internet anonymously. It was done for a high-minded and noble reason. It was to protect intelligence communications. It was to protect political dissidents and journalists from retaliation by repressive regimes. So it's another example of unintended consequences. The problem today is that these tools are not just being used by political dissidents. They're being used by drug traffickers, weapons traffickers, human traffickers. There are assassination sites on the dark web. And not surprisingly, it's being used by those who prey upon children, who want to connect with people of like interest around the world, trade images, trade fantasies, trade techniques, even in some cases trade real children, so that law enforcement can't penetrate that. Now, law enforcement is catching up. There have been some recent investigations and arrests. But what internet anonymity has done has created this giant, you can't reach one of these sites via Google or one of the search engines. You reach them by using tools to access this area that's called the dark web. It's the anonymous, unregulated, unpatrolled internet.
I would just add to what Ernie, very excellent description, by the way. I would just add to that, you have the open web, which acts as a beacon for criminals of all kinds to draw young people or any vulnerable person in through open, applications and platforms that people use every day. So those become almost a beacon. And then you have there's places where you aggregate this illegal content, which is usually the dark web. But then you have encrypted communications apps where people can speak freely and to, make planned strategies and share tactics. And so, if you look at every type of platform or application, there are different potential harms and crimes that we have to be alerted to and cognizant of. So I think oftentimes people start to mix these various platforms and, the dark web with others. And I think it's just really important to understand how they interrelate and how, in this case, what our focus this week is the impact on victims and how those victims are drawn in and groomed on open platforms, and then how people share information and obfuscate their transactions through other methods like cryptocurrency and the dark web.
Sergio Mora, when do you think, Father Zollner, when do you think the end of the report of the Congress will be ready?
Now we plan the publication of the draft and the publication of a declaration that will be adopted by the participants by Thursday afternoon, and we will hand this declaration over to the Holy Father on Friday noon. That will be the declaration, and there will hopefully be some bullet points of action. Of course, the different players in this field need then to own that for themselves. And this is precisely what we hope Pope Francis will do, will sort of challenge us not only on having a nice conference and congress, but following up on that. And really implementing each one for the field of his or her competence. Means the governments, the lawmakers need to do what they are supposed to. Police needs to implement. Internet companies, software providers, all the social media companies that sort of offer that space need to have their share and responsibility. The scientists will be asked to contribute in a major way also in the future. And not long ago in May, there was a conference called for by ECPAT in Panama, together with Religions for Peace, and they came up with a definition of what faith communities can really help in this process and how they can help. Because faith communities from all kinds of faiths and religions have the possibility to reach people from the grassroots level to political highest levels. So you have an educational and sort of moral impact by means of this voice of faith communities that can be helpful. So we are happy that representatives from all these areas will be there. Concrete outcomes will be there, but we will need also to pinpoint certain things that we will have to follow through over the next years.
Hi, I'm Larry Magid, and I'm the CEO of Connect Safely, but I'm also representing CBS News, covering it for the radio network in the United States. I think everybody on the panel, including the Pope, who will be here on Friday, recognize that the internet, for the most part, is a very positive force or social good and social justice. And I'm wondering how the conference might address the horrible issues that we're struggling with, but put them in context so that we don't scare parents and others to discourage their children from taking the advantage of the positive aspects of the internet.
I think you raise a very good point. And, you know, I think often when we saw the cracks start to show, we saw the things that could happen that would damage children online, our immediate reaction was to extol the virtues of the digital revolution and say, like, it's very rare, it happens in real life. And I think we've done a little bit too much of that, Larry. I think now's the time to really say, hold on a minute. There are real issues, there are real things we can do about it. And it's not about scaremongering, it's just about alerting the public and making sure that people understand, if you're a teacher, how do you prepare a child to be digitally confident and resilient so they can recognize potential harms and not be drawn in? How do you as a parent understand the world that which your child is inhabiting? We talk about how, we're so amazed at kids and how adept they are at technology, but, we don't really know what's going on. They have a one person to an infinite number relationship with the world through that device. And, I think it's time that we're really honest and practical about what we can do, about what things that children are exposed to that would in the physical world be considered, a crime.
Nicole first, and then
Hi, Nicole Winfield from the Associated Press. I appreciate that the conference hasn't happened yet, so all the expertise hasn't come out yet. But I was hoping you all could help us to understand the geography. We're going to hear from Africa. We know that Asia has been a trouble spot. Father Zollner, you were asked on Friday, I think the lack of representation, at least among the panelists from Latin America, is that because it's not happening there? Is it because the expertise isn't developed there? It seems to be, I can't imagine the problem isn't there as well. And can you speak about, what we know about where children are being victimized the most? Are they in the developing world, or is it, an Anglo-Saxon problem, as everyone once thought sex abuse, actual abuse, physical abuse was just a problem in the English-speaking world?
I will start and at 2 after the break. Somebody else can take up then, yeah? Just to say this is a very large issue. Only a few things. Last year I was at DFAT, at the Australian Foreign and Trade Ministry in Canberra. And I met with persons from the DFAT, with the General Attorney's Office, and with Federal Police from Australia, and we were discussing this issue. And they mentioned only one number that I will quote here. They said last year, in the next couple of years, 500 million more Indians will go online. Over the next couple of years. So last year, this year, next year. 500 million more people will go online only in India. Now, if we estimate conservatively, half of them will be below 18 years of age, whose parents have, most of them, no idea what the internet is, what the smartphone is, and what a tablet is, and what you can see there, and watch and engage. So, I left really scared that meeting, thinking of 250 million people, young people, only in India, who will be online over the next months and years, and who have no education and no protection whatsoever by whomsoever, not in schools and not by their parents, certainly. Basically, generally speaking, there will be exceptions, but I have lived in India. I know how that works there. So I have seen, I was in Fiji 4 weeks ago. I was in Jakarta. I've never seen so many blackberries in the hands of people than in Jakarta. Young people in Korea travel 2 or 3 hours a day to and fro to their schools or to their professional. So this is everywhere, and the risks are everywhere. All the kinds of risks that we have seen in the video and that Baroness Shields has spelled out. Of course, it is not a Western problem, although in many parts of the world, and I would dare say 75% of countries in this world, the issue of sexual abuse, physical abuse and online abuse of children has not reached the level of discussion and of attention and of awareness like in the Anglo and the Central European countries. This, I can witness to that. That is not yet a problem. That is perceived as a problem. Although all those people who work in that field, of course, know that's there, but for whatever reason, and in many cases, it's because of shame and because of lack of language and because of lack of expertise. And that's also, we have this research going on in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, since 30 years or so, precisely because people have talked about this since 30 years. So you can't expect that people in Latin America or in Africa or in Asia, in many countries of Asia, would talk about it and would engage and would get funding for that because it's not perceived as an issue. The professor with whom we started the Center for Child Protection 6 years ago, he investigated, he researched 30 years ago. And he was asked, why are you interested in this subject? Are you a bit crazy? Are you interested yourself? So all these kind of people are seen as in the sort of mixing with topics that you better don't touch. It's very uncomfortable to take it on. Professor Kafo can certainly talk about this since he has worked in this field for 30 years in this country, and support is very difficult to get. And the public interest. We talk about numbers, as Ernie Allen has said. We talk about horrendous numbers. Who takes this into account? The European Union has a campaign running, 1 in 5. 1 in 5 in Europe, 1 child and youth in Europe is sexually abused, says the European Union. 20%. Every 5th young person you see on the streets in Rome here is sexually abused, says the European Union. Who takes note of that? And this additionally, potentially, of course, multiplied by the risks that you run with the internet abuse. That is more hidden, that is more difficult to detect, that is more difficult to tackle. So, as I said, I could go on for hours now. We need to involve people from different countries, so we are happy that the Arabic world will somehow be representative. Asian will be somehow representative. We'll have somebody from Latin America, but again, and this is also something we pledge for with the Center for Child Protection here, we try to form people who will be the experts in Africa and in Asia and in Latin America in a few years. We have doctoral students from precisely those continents. Because we don't target the Anglo world or the Germanic world, we target this world where there is nobody, really, I repeat, nobody who really can take it on from a scientifically sound position. But if somebody wants to add to that, welcome.
Let me just add very, very briefly. First of all, in defense of the agenda, it was designed as a scientific agenda. So we sought the leading researchers who have done research in this area. So they're the primary speakers, and they're overwhelmingly from the global north, from North America and Europe. Secondly, we also reached out aggressively for attendees from across the world. So, for example, there's a delegation coming representing the Cyberspace Administration of China. There's a delegation coming from the Saudi Interior Ministry. There's a delegation from the UAE Interior Ministry. There's a federal judge from Brazil and a prosecutor from Brazil and the head of a prominent NGO in Costa Rica. There's the head of the Russian Internet Industry Association. So the goal, and I understand that's, one needs to be careful about saying things like that, but the goal was to be globally representative and inclusive. The other point I want to make is, and Baroness Shields can comment on this as well, when the UK launched We Protect, the then Prime Minister David Cameron committed £50 million to a fund taken from the DFID in the UK, which funds overseas development aid. So it has to go to the developing world. That fund is being managed by a new global partnership to end violence against children at the UN. And the funding from those British funds are going to places like the Philippines and El Salvador and Peru, places where perhaps this problem is not as fully developed as it will be in a few years, but areas in which we can target and develop the capacity to address it now. So, I think it's a really good question, and we've tried to be sensitive to it, but I think Father Zollner is exactly right. We're at the beginning of what we hope will be a comprehensive process.
Christopher Lamb, The Tablet. My question is for Baroness Shields and the whole panel. Baroness Shields, you mentioned encrypted communication apps, and we read with regards to the Vatican diplomat recalled from Washington, in the reports at least, the accusation is that an image was uploaded using social media. As a former Facebook executive, what do you think is the responsibility for firms such as Facebook, WhatsApp, all social media in terms of encryption? Should there be de-encryption? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so encryption is one of the ways in which criminals obfuscate their actions. They also use cryptocurrencies and other things to ensure that their transactions aren't publicly available and that they can hide from their crimes. Encryption, as you know, has very good purpose in our everyday lives. It keeps our information safe, keeps our information private. But part of what We Protect started out was born out of a technology task force that Prime Minister David Cameron had set up with President Obama. And I was responsible for the technology part of that. Well, what we did is we brought the world's technology community together and we raised these issues. And we said, listen, you have the brightest minds in the world. You have all the engineering and the deep technical capability. Here's the problem we're seeing, and will you come back and give us a solution for that? So that's the partnership that started to work in 2013. So I'll give you an example. The first thing we did is we asked Google, we showed them how you could find child sexual abuse images through search. You can't find them today because the conversation we had led to a comprehensive solution whereby you could no longer identify this material. It's been eliminated. So in terms of the open web, you don't have the problem that we had 4 or 5 years ago. We work with, Microsoft developed something called PhotoDNA, which has revolutionized the way we identify sexual abuse images online. It's an open source product that they offer to everybody for free, and the entire industry has taken that up. Now what that means is when they using PhotoDNA, they can identify a unique hash that's associated with an image, and then that hash is then removed from all of their services. So this information is shared with technology companies through the Internet Watch Foundation. So you start to see we're building a strategy. So as we define we're building a solution, as we share in this partnership, this multi-stakeholder partnership with the industry, a problem. So with each of these things, that as they evolve, it's about sitting down at a table and saying, this is something we need you to fix. And in general, we get very good response. But as I think everyone has said today, technology is moving so quickly and morphing and changing that, you know, we really need all hands on these problems.
Any other questions, or we can draw to a close this formal part? Good. The speakers will be available, I think, for some one-to-ones for a few minutes. If you identify yourself to me, we'll see if we can arrange that. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we draw to an end. You can follow tweets on the hashtag Child Dignity, capital C, capital D. You can watch the live stream of the conference itself on the CCP YouTube channel. So that's CCP video. Facebook Live will be broadcasting the opening forum and the papal audience. But you will be able to follow all of the conference from here or from your terminals, wherever you are, if you just go onto that CCP video channel. Speakers throughout the conference will be available for very brief interview, Q&A, during coffee breaks. So again, if you have a look at the program, you'll be able to identify when there will be the opportunity to speak to speakers. If there are specific requests, do ask me or one of the other staff. And the final point is, obviously, there's an open Wi-Fi if you haven't managed to get hold of it yet. Here it's CDDW 2017. Thank you very much. Thank you to the speakers, and thank you for your coverage. Good work.